What's up, everybody? Hello and welcome to Not Your Average Meta, an MTG Commander channel dedicated to bringing you decks and commanders you wouldn't normally find in your average meta. This week's video is brought to you by our new channel sponsor, International MTG. If you're looking for competitive pricing on your favorite MTG cards, old and new, be sure to check out the International MTG store and TCG Player, link in the description of this video. This week on Not Your Average Meta, we have 3 different middle decks going at it, and our friend Patrick making his first appearance just trying to survive. First, we have the newcomer to the table, Patrick, playing the Locust God. This deck is built around using the Locust God's ability to create an unstoppable swarm of insects by drawing a ton of cards. Then we have Gavin, aka the self-proclaimed cheater, playing his mono-blue Bruvac the Grandiloquent deck. This deck is a mill deck that looks to take advantage of Bruvac being able to mill his opponents at twice the speed of a normal mill deck. Next, we have Justin returning with Oona, Queen of the Fae. This is Justin's version of a mill deck where he looks to just pull out a win with a classic mill strategy. Finally, we have Fogrel playing Feldon of the Third Path. This deck is a mono-red self-mill deck where Fog is looking to mill his entire library into his graveyard in order to create a token copy of game-winning creatures with Feldon. Now that we have our fighters, let's step into the Thunderdome and see which deck will come out on top. Before the game starts, Justin's pre-game action has him dropping in a Leyline of the Void. Turn 1, Justin plays a Tainted Isle, then pays 1 for an Altar of the Brood. Fog draws, then plays a Mountain for turn before casting a Zurin Orb for 0. Patrick draws and plays a Command Tower before passing. Gavin draws and plays a Scalding Tarn before paying the 1 life to crack it, going to get a basic island. Justin draws and plays a Swamp for turn. Each opponent mills a card. He then pays 2 to cast a Demonic Tutor, going to look for a card from his library while he passes. Fog just plays a Mountain for turn before passing. Patrick draws and plays an island and then also passes. Gavin draws and plays a second island and ends his turn. Justin draws and pays 1 for a Rune Crab, and each opponent mills a card. He then plays a Watery Grave, paying 2 life for it to come into play untapped, and each opponent then mills another 4 cards. Fog draws and plays another Mountain. He then taps out to cast a Chaos Warp, targeting Justin's Leyline. Justin then shuffles the Leyline into his library and has Fog cut his deck. He then reveals a Choked Estuary off the top of his library, putting it into play, milling his opponents for 4 cards. Patrick draws and plays a tapped Izzet Guildgate for turn and passes. Gavin draws and plays another island for turn before tapping out to cast his commander Bruvac. Justin draws and pays 1 for a Thieves Guild Enforcer, then because of Bruvac being out, Fog and Patrick each mill 6 cards, while Gavin only mills 3. He then pays 3 for a Frantic Search, drawing 2 cards, discarding 2 cards, and untapping 3 lands. Fog draws for turn, then pays 4 for Nahir's Little Forming, which has him sacrificing 2 mountains, drawing 2 cards, and then putting 2 lands into play from his hand tapped. Patrick draws for turn and just plays a mountain before passing. Gavin draws and plays a Polluted Delta, paying 1 life to crack it, going to get another island. He then pays 3 for Tasha's Hideous Laughter, which has each opponent exiling cards from the top of their library until they exile enough cards to equal a mana value of 20 or greater. Justin draws and plays a Swamp, milling Patrick and Fog for 8 cards and Gavin for 4. He then pays to cast a Discounted Into the Story, drawing 4 cards. Fog draws and pays 1 to cast Gamble, going to look for a card from his library. He then has Patrick randomly choose a card for him to discard, and Patrick picks a card he tutored for. Fog then pays 3 for a Blood Moon and passes. Patrick draws and plays an island before paying 3 to cast Rael the Everwise. Gavin draws and plays another island. He then pays 1 to cast Tome Scour, targeting Fog, having him mill 10 cards. He then pays an additional 3 in order to cast a Psychic Corrosion before passing his turn. Justin draws and plays an island, milling Patrick and Fog for 8 cards and Gavin for 4. He then casts Haunt of Hightower, milling Patrick and Fog for 2 cards, while he mills Gavin for 1 and adds 5 counters to his Haunt. Fog draws and pays to cast his commander Feldon before passing. Patrick draws and plays a land for turn, before tapping out to also cast his commander, the Locust God, before going to combat, swinging Rael at Gavin for 8 damage. Gavin draws for turn, and each opponent then mills 4 cards, which then puts 8 counters on Justin's Haunt of Hightower. He then casts Fraying Sanity, targeting Patrick, before he then casts a Mind Sculpt targeting Patrick, having him mill 14 additional cards, which puts more counters on Justin's Haunt. At his end step, Patrick then mills 36 more cards, making Justin's Haunt huge. Justin plays a land for turn, milling everyone yet again, growing his Haunt of Hightower. before he then goes to combat and swings a Haunted Gavin for 66 damage while he gains 66 life, taking Gavin out of the game. He then recasts his Leyline of the Void, milling his opponents for one more card. Fog draws and plays a Scorched Ruin for turn, sacrificing 2 mountains. He then pays to activate Feldon, creating a copy of Mindclaw Shaman, which Fog uses targeting Justin. He then looks at Justin's hand and casts a Traumatize, targeting Justin, making him mill half of his library. Fog then swings the Shaman at Justin, who blocks, and he ends his turn. Patrick untaps to start his turn, and before dying, he casts Mystic Confluence to bounce the Haunt of Hightower and then the Rune Crab back to Justin's hand. Justin draws for turn, and then he recasts his Rune Crab, milling Fog for 1. He then recasts a Haunt of Hightower, milling Fog for another card. He then swings his Enforcer at Fog for 3 damage and passes. Fog draws and plays a Mountain for turn, but with no answers in hand, he concedes the game to Justin. Justin, how's it feel to get another win today?
Man, it feels pretty good. Gavin and I had a tag team to mill, and really I had to carry the team. But, Gavin had to support me the little he did, but it was a good win, though. It was a good win.
Hey, man.
Gavin, how's it feel to be the Robin to his Batman in this last game?
Hey, you know what? Both of you guys, who else was here? I don't care. I'm glad that I can help someone else. I'll carry the weight. I'm just like Shaquille O'Neal to the Kobe, Dennis Rodman to Michael Jordan. I'm just Scottie Pippen to Jordan. Who knows?
Daniel Gibson to LeBron James.
That's the one. Yeah.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can see more games and decks you wouldn't normally see in your average meta.